ecological psychology, the ecological psychology portion rather, of ecological dynamics represents. Then on this flip side, that is married together with that ecological psychology is the idea of complex dynamical systems, where you have interacting parts coming together, component parts, in self-organizing ways in a perception, intention, and action coupling standpoint, at least when we're talking about the human movement system, organizing and coordinating and controlling movement solutions. So these two things, these two ideas, represent this marriage of something that we can use to not only investigate and understand movement, but as importantly for most people in this room, to impact the way we coach and teach. Okay? So what you find here is, as my friend Rob constantly talks about on his Perception Action podcast, is we must keep things coupled. Dynamical systems coupled. That environment and performer represent a dynamical system, where information transactions guide that emergent movement. Where the problem and solution are coupled. Where the perception, intention, and action are coupled. So it doesn't become problem here, solution there. It becomes problem and solution in one big messy pot. One big melting pot, if you will. And the same thing then will happen with these respective constraints. And so from there we can start to really dive into what I refer to as the 3 B's of movement skill. Behaviors, brain, and biomechanics. The behaviors being the sensory and perceptual processes that are occurring. The brain and the processes of the brain, depending on where that is consciously or what level that's consciously being held at, that respective problem and solution interaction. So any decision making that one might make, and then finally, the action. And oftentimes our profession has been really guilty of just focusing on that last B. Just focusing on the actions out of context. And I believe that this relates to a whole host of problems and issues. Not only individuals who don't have solutions to respective problems that they might face in pressure and anxiety and chaos, such as on an NFL Sunday or on a high school Friday night, but more specifically, how we will train and attempt to acquire that skill. Because we attempt to attack it based on a biomechanical motor action output only in many cases, and we separate it from that perception and attention. And once we've done that, it no longer, to me, is a solution to a problem. Obviously, we could get much, much deeper here as far as that's concerned, but I will let certain individuals sort of take the reins with that. So we go back to a title slide that I had, that I often refer back to when you guys signed up for this conference, where Nikolai Bernstein said back in '67, as well as then in dexterity and its development as well later on, obviously much after they passed. A movement is correct when it perfectly fits a motor problem, just as a key easily opens a lock. So one question that I have for each and every one of you, as we go into our challenge discussions later, or even as you hear the presenters that are coming up, is to you, what determines correct movement? If we look at dexterity and its development and some of Bernstein's earlier work as well, what you find is he frequently discusses movement in context and starts to explore some of these issues and ideas. And I hope as an ecological dynamics group or niche, we can start to look at it in the same way. And I'll take you exactly where it is that I usually go, which again probably doesn't come as a shock or surprise for those of you who've heard the presentation right prior to this point, is for me, one thing that I'm obsessed with is affordances. The information and the affordances that emerge, the invitations, the limits, the constraints on the movement, coordination, control, and organization. So as I investigate that affordances, or that affordance-based control, if you remember back to the presentation this morning, I talked about effectivities. who that performer is. And affordances being frame dependent, dependent on the person, dependent at that moment in time, depending on what they sense and perceive, and it links those 3 B's back to the mix. It links those 3 B's in an integrative fashion. Perception, intention, and action. And then what we find is degeneracy, and adaptation, and abundance, and hopefully emerging from there, dexterity, or the ability to find a movement solution under any context, under any situation, in any problem that the athlete faces. So there's those 2 big words on the bottom. The key to me lies in attunement and adaptation rather than the acquisition of something per se. So the ability to focus on the most specifying information at the right time based on what the problem affords. Corey and Scott and Michael talked a lot about that as I gave them leading questions. Scott talked about timing and speeds that his opponent was offering. Michael talked about what the environment was giving him as far as space was concerned, and how you exploit that, and those nuances of the problem are imperative to how we attempt to go acquire greater skill or greater attunement and adaptation. So, for me, oftentimes when I talk about repetition without repetition, as I so often do, I'm accused of performing not enough repetitions. Because people want to see more. They want to see more idealized technical execution. And the more reps, the better. Those are our traditional implications. Instead, as my man Bernie also said back in '67, these famous words that I sort of live and breathe by, even my athlete that's sitting back there that was checking you guys in can tell you he hears repetition without repetition more than he cares to. Is that true? Thoughts? So practice is a search process. It's a search process for an integrative solution at a multi-dimensional level. Behaviors, brain and biomechanics, perception, intention, and action. And it's in the process of that solving of the problem, rather than that execution, rep after rep, that we are really interested in. That feels, acts, behaves like sport. So Bernstein, well ahead of his time, already talked about practice being repetition without repetition, rather than repetition by rote. And there's a whole host of things that we will see as we investigate that. Some things that Keith Davids and others have sort of explored on this slide. Of course, we're going to be talking to Keith tomorrow. And one point that we see here is this is from 2015, as opposed to Bernstein's coming from '67, is that they start to point out what we should probably be after. That attunement and that adaptation really relates to one big word that sticks out to me there, called dexterity. And that dexterity, no matter what level of athlete you work with, is something that we must find from an individualistic standpoint based on the context that the athlete is finding. So instead of repeating trial to trial, technical execution to technical execution, what we are searching for is a functional, problem-solving, purposeful coordination solution in, as you guys just saw, a dynamic performance environment. So these 2 slides with these highlighted points really start to point us to very significant properties and factors that I believe we have to reorient ourselves on. And here, guys and gals, as I'm just winding down, I just wanted to sort of show you how that materializes then to create this ecological dynamics idea. And this ecological dynamics field, if you want to think about it in that way, is still relatively new. But we see some trends that hopefully showed themselves when we went through our hands-on session this morning. Non-linear pedagogy, obviously the idea that we're going to be athlete-centered. We're not going to treat, it's not going to be coach-centered, where we treat every athlete the same way. Every situation the same way. Instead, it's athlete-centered. Secondly, there's a manipulation of constraints to get that self-organization to emerge. It might not be exactly what we expected it would, but finding solutions to fit those motor problems, finding keys to those locks. And because of that, we use practice is a search process. And in that process, we find attunement and we find adaptation. And then finally, it being individualistic versus idealistic. Secondly there, as we talked about this morning, representative tasks and representative learning. Here we find where repetition without repetition really lives and breathes. No two problems are the same, so neither are no two solutions. And what we get from that is fidelity, similarity, transference, correspondence between problem and solution. Thirdly, one of my very favorite topics, of course, attunement to affordances for action. Again, we perceive to act, we act to perceive. We have authenticity, and that's what is not only expected, it's what's encouraged, as hopefully we showed this morning. So even in a movement preparation scheme, even in a warm-up, we aim for perception, intention, and action, and them all coupling together in a really integrative, intertwined fashion, not separating the two whenever we so can. And finally, a topic that I'm super excited to hear Rob explore, in functional movement variability. So we see dexterity, or the ability to solve any problem under any context and situation. And most often athletes do that from highly degenerate or highly abundant, as well as adaptable movement solutions in different ways. Several individuals who will be coming up and speaking after me are much, much smarter than I am as it pertains to those respective topics, so I'm going to let them do the justice here in the service. But I just wanted to introduce them. Before we do that, as we wind down here, if you've ever heard me present, you know that I include this in literally every presentation I ever give. You guys are all in possession of your own special sauce, right? You're all yourself. You're all your authentic self. And I expect you to be nothing but that today, this weekend. But I would also implore you to do exactly that with every experience you have in continuing education. Whether it's going to presentations, whether it's going on site visits, whether it's reading a research journal. Take these words from one of the most masterful movers of all time. Movement philosopher, if you will, in Bruce Lee. Where he said right before this, use your own experience, absorb what is useful, discard what is not, and add what is uniquely irrelevant. Bruce Lee obviously put it much more poignantly than I ever could, but I think we as a profession, as a group, if we're going to find the truth, we have to do that a little bit more. So a few calls to action here. This is what I would implore each and every one of you to do, along with much, much more than this. First, as I just mentioned, be authentic. Be willing to push yourself into your own learning zone. Take yourself and push yourself into that challenge point, wherever that challenge point exists for you. Your personal challenge point. Have conversations. Dive into it deeper. Tell others what you don't understand and know about sport movement skill or skill acquisition. That's how we will all improve and expand. And finally, as you guys are already doing, so this is already preaching to the choir, but be that change. Okay? You are the movement. It's not me, it's not these presenters, it's all of us. It's we. So that being said, I thank each and every one of you for being here, being willing to step out of your comfort zone, to push that status quo, to empty your cup a bit, and to go out of that comfort zone and into the learning zone. If you have any suggestions at all, or as so many people in this room that I see as familiar faces, who we've had conversations, extensive conversations, you know I'm always willing to chat about literally anything movement, and sometimes I probably will dive in there even further than you desire, okay? But I cannot wait. That's a part that, for me, this is just going to be a big geek out moment from here on out, as I get to learn not only from the presenters, but from each and every one of you guys as well. So thank you so much. Absorb it all, and let's push this envelope a little bit further and get on this movement. Thank you very much.